The moment I saw my grades, I knew one thing for certain. I was not going home that day, because the paper in my hand was not just a report card. It was a death sentence signed by every single teacher in that school. See, let me take you back. This was a Friday afternoon, end of term, the kind of day every student in Jamaica either walks out of school feeling like a champion or walks out looking like they just received bad news from a doctor. The sun was hitting different that day, too. I, like even the weather, knew something was wrong. The birds were chirping. The breeze was blowing. It was genuinely a beautiful day. And there I was, standing outside my classroom door, holding a single folded piece of paper that had the power to completely destroy my entire life as I knew it. Now, before I tell you what was on that report card, let me give you some background so you understand exactly what kind of household I was growing up in. My mother, Miss Paulette, was not a woman you played with, not even a little bit. This woman woke up every single morning at 5 in the morning, pressed her uniform, made breakfast, read her Bible, and still had time to mentally prepare herself for whatever nonsense the day was going to bring her. She worked double shifts at the hospital 3 times a week. She paid every bill on time. She kept the house spotless. She gave me every single thing I needed to succeed in school. Lunch money every day, new shoes at the start of every term, textbooks, notebooks, pens, pencils, everything. If there was a school supply that existed, my mother made sure I had it. So, in her mind, there was absolutely zero excuse for failure. Zero. None. Not one. My father was a different kind of pressure. He did not say much. That was actually the scary part about him. He was the type of man who would just look at you, just stare. And somehow that stare communicated every single emotion he was feeling without him opening his mouth one single time. Disapproval, disappointment, anger, all of it, just through his eyes. I would have honestly preferred if he screamed. At least screaming ends. That stare could last for days. So now you understand the environment I was operating in. These were not people you brought bad grades home to. These were not parents who sat you down calmly and said things like, "Well, son, we believe in you, and next term will be better." No. These were Jamaican parents in the truest sense of the word. Results were expected. Excuses were not tolerated. And failure? Failure was treated like a personal insult against the entire family. Now, I need to also tell you about my cousin Marcus, because Marcus plays a big role in this story. Marcus was 2 years older than me, went to the same school, and was genuinely one of the smartest people I had ever met in my life. I'd not just book smart either, street smart, problem-solving smart. The kind of smart where he could look at a bad situation and immediately figure out 3 different ways to get out of it. My aunt used to bring his report cards to every family gathering and pass them around the table like they were trophies. Straight A grades across the board, every single term without fail. And every time that happened, every single adult in that room would look at me with the exact same expression. That slow, meaningful look that said absolutely everything without saying a single word. You know the look I am talking about. The "why can you not be more like Marcus" look. I had been receiving that look since I was about 9 years old, and I was tired of it, genuinely exhausted by it. But here is the thing. The irony of this whole situation, the cruel, terrible, laugh-out-loud irony. Marcus was the one who had convinced me to stop studying 2 weeks before end-of-term exams. It was Marcus who knocked on my door one Sunday afternoon and said, "Hi, forget the books today. Come watch football with me." It was Marcus who said, "You study too hard, man. Just relax. The exam not that serious." And I, like the absolute fool that I was, listened to him, closed my textbooks, put down my pen, and spent the last 2 weeks of term doing absolutely nothing school-related whatsoever. So there I was, standing in the hallway, holding my report card, and too afraid to open it fully in public because I already knew from the brief glance I had taken inside the classroom that it was not good. My mathematics teacher, Mr. Bernard, had handed it to me without even making eye contact. That alone told me everything I needed to know. When a teacher cannot look you in the face while giving you your grades, you are in serious trouble. I found a quiet spot near the back of the school, away from everyone, and I unfolded that paper completely. And I am telling you right now, the things I saw written on that report card made my entire body go cold. Mathematics, 42%. English language, 38%. Science, 31%. Social studies, 44%. Religious education, 29%. History, 36%. And at the very bottom, in red ink that looked like it had been written with extra force and extra intention, was a comment from my form teacher, Mr. Campbell. It said, "And I want you to really absorb these words. This student has shown a complete and total lack of effort this term. If significant improvement is not made by next term, we will need to have a serious conversation about his future at this institution." I read that comment 3 times, 3 full times, and each time I read it, my stomach dropped a little lower, because I knew exactly what was waiting for me at home. I could already hear my mother's voice in my head. I could already see my father's stare forming behind his eyes. I needed a plan, a real plan, not a weak plan, not a halfway plan. A full, detailed, airtight plan that could somehow get me through this situation without losing my life. The first idea I had was simple. Throw it away. Just walk to the nearest garbage bin, drop the report card inside, and act like it never existed. But I immediately realized the problem with that. At the end of every term, my school mailed a copy of each student's report card directly to their parents. So even if I destroyed this physical copy, another one was already on its way to my house through the postal service. Throwing it away would only delay the inevitable by about 3 to 5 business days. That was not a solution. That was just postponing my death. The second idea was to alter the grades. I had seen this in a movie once. A student takes a pen and changes the numbers on the report card before showing it to their parents. I actually pulled out a pen and held it over the paper for about 45 seconds. But then I thought about my mother's eyes. That woman could detect something wrong with a document from 10 feet away. She read everything carefully, every word, every number. She would notice immediately if anything looked altered. And if she caught me not only failing, but also tampering with official school documents, that would be a completely different and far worse category of trouble. So I put the pen away. The third idea was to not go home at all. Just disappear for a while. Let some time pass. Maybe go stay with my friend Devon on the other side of town and just wait until things calmed down. Devon's mother was a relaxed woman who never asked too many questions. I could probably stay there for a few days. I collect my thoughts, and come up with something. But then I thought about what happens when a Jamaican parent realizes their child has not come home. My mother would call every phone number she had. She would contact the school. She would call the police if she had to. And when she finally found me hiding at Devon's house like a coward, things would be 10 times worse than they would have been if I had just gone home normally. That idea was also dead. So I started walking. Not walking home specifically, just walking. Moving without a destination because movement felt better than standing still and thinking about all the ways this situation could end badly for me. I walked past the corner shop. I walked past the church. I walked past the community center where the older men sat outside playing dominoes every afternoon. One of them, an old man named Mr. Leroy, who had known my family for decades, looked up as I passed and said, "Boy, why you look like somebody dead." I forced a laugh and kept moving. It was somewhere around this point that I ran into my cousin Marcus. Of all the people on the planet, on this specific road, at this specific moment in time, it had to be Marcus. He was walking in the opposite direction, eating a patty like he did not have a single concern in the world. He saw my face and immediately started laughing. "You get your report card?" he asked. I showed it to him. He looked at it for about 4 seconds and then looked back at me with the most unbothered expression I had ever seen on a human face. "Aye," he said. "That is not that bad, man." I genuinely could not believe those words had come out of his mouth. Not that bad, not that bad. I had a 29% in religious education. 29%. I had failed to impress even God on this report card. But then Marcus said something that actually stopped me in my tracks. He said, "You remember what I did in grade 7 when I failed mathematics?" I looked at him, because here is the thing about Marcus. Nobody in our family knew that Marcus had ever failed anything. Ever. His reputation was completely spotless. Every report card I had ever seen from him was perfect. "What you mean you failed mathematics?" I asked. And Marcus smiled. Not a nervous smile. A calm, confident, I know exactly what I am doing smile. And then he told me the story. Apparently, back in grade 7, Marcus had failed his mathematics mid-term exam so badly that his teacher had called home. But Marcus had intercepted that phone call by convincing a friend to call his house phone at the exact same time, creating a busy signal that prevented the teacher from getting through. Then he had spent the next 3 weeks studying harder than he had ever studied in his life, pulled his grade up before the end-of-term report card was issued, and no one in the family ever found out. Thus, not his mother, not his father, nobody. The Marcus, who sat at family gatherings collecting praise for his perfect grades, had a secret chapter that nobody knew existed. And the way he told this story, with that calm smile, made me realize something important. Marcus was not just book smart. Marcus was survival smart. And right now, I needed some of that. The problem was that my situation was different from his. The end-of-term grades were already printed, already official, already sealed in an envelope and on their way to my mother through the postal service. There was no pulling grades up before anyone saw them. The damage was already done. What I needed was not a way to fix the grades. What I needed was a way to control the conversation that was about to happen when my mother received that envelope. Marcus thought about it for a moment. Then he said, "Go home. Go home right now, before she gets that letter. Tell her yourself." I stared at him. Tell her myself?" He nodded. "Tell her yourself. Walk in that door, sit down, and tell her before she finds out from the paper. Because if she finds out from you, at least she knows you are being honest. And if she finds out from the letter, you lose the honest card and the bad grades card at the same time." I thought about that. It was either the smartest advice I had ever received or the most insane. I could not decide which. I walked home slowly, very slowly, the kind of slow where each step felt like it required a separate decision. Left foot, decision. Right foot, decision. The gate of our house came into view, and I stopped completely for a solid 2 minutes, just standing on the road outside looking at it. Through the window, I could see the television was on. I could see the back of my mother's head. She was sitting in her chair, which meant she had gotten home from her shift, which meant she was tired, which was either a good thing, because tired people sometimes do not have the energy to be fully angry, or a terrible thing, because tired people sometimes have absolutely no patience whatsoever. I genuinely did not know which version of tired I was walking into. I pushed the gate open, walked up the path, opened the front door. The smell of the house hit me immediately. Rice and peas on the stove, a candle burning somewhere in the back room. The specific and familiar smell of home that under any other circumstances would have been completely comforting. My mother turned her head when she heard the door. "You reach," she said. Not a question, just an acknowledgement. "Yes, Mama," I said. My voice came out smaller than I intended. She looked at me for 1 extra second, just one, and then turned back to the television. "Wash your hands and come eat." I washed my hands. I sat down at the table. I ate my food in silence, and the whole time I was eating, the report card was folded in my back pocket, pressing against me like it was alive, like it had weight beyond what paper should have. Every bite of rice I took felt like it required enormous effort. My mother moved around the kitchen. She poured herself a glass of water. She checked something on the stove. Normal things. Completely normal Friday evening things. And I sat there knowing that I was about to shatter the entire normalcy of this evening with a single piece of paper. I finished eating, pushed the plate aside, took a breath so deep it probably moved air from another room, and then I said, "Mama, I need to show you something." She turned around from the counter, looked at me. Something in my voice or my face must have told her immediately that this was not a casual conversation, because her expression shifted in a way that I recognized. It was the expression she wore when she was preparing herself, like she was putting on internal armor. She walked over to the table slowly and sat down across from me. "Show me what?" she said. I reached into my back pocket, pulled out the report card, unfolded it, and placed it on the table facing her. I watched her eyes move across the page, left to right, top to bottom, the numbers, the percentages, the comment from Mr. Campbell at the bottom in red ink. She read every single word. Y'all, she read it twice. And then she looked up at me. And in that moment, something happened that I had not expected at all, that I had not prepared for in any of my mental rehearsals on the walk home. She did not raise her voice. She did not stand up. She did not reach for anything nearby that could be used as a weapon. She just looked at me with an expression that I can only describe as deeply, profoundly tired. Not tired like she needed sleep, and tired like she needed this situation to make sense to her, and it simply did not. "Tell me something," she said. Her voice was quiet. That quiet was somehow worse than any volume I had ever heard from her before. "Did I not give you everything you needed?" I opened my mouth. She held up one hand. "I am not finished. Did I not give you lunch money every single day? New books at the start of term? Everything?" I nodded. "Then explain to me," she said, placing one finger on the report card, "what happened here?" And the thing is, I did not have an answer. Not a real one. I could have said I was distracted. I could have mentioned Marcus and the football and the 2 weeks of no studying. But none of that felt like a sufficient explanation sitting across from a woman who worked double shifts and still found time to make sure I had everything I needed. I said the only true thing I could say. "I stopped trying, Mama. I stopped trying, and I am sorry." She looked at me for a very long time after that. Long enough that I started to wonder if the quiet was going to last forever. Then she stood up, picked up the report card, folded it, and placed it on the kitchen counter. "Go do your homework," she said. That was it. That was all she said. I got up from the table, went to my room, and sat on the edge of my bed, completely confused about whether I had just survived something or whether I was simply in the eye of a storm that had not fully arrived yet. My father came home 2 hours later. I heard the front door. I heard my parents' voices in the kitchen, low and steady, the way adults talk when they are discussing something they do not want their children to hear. I pressed my ear against my bedroom door. I could not make out full sentences, but I could hear the tone, unmeasured, serious, the specific frequency of a conversation about me. Then I heard my father's footsteps in the hallway, slow and deliberate. He knocked once on my bedroom door and opened it without waiting for an answer. He stood in the doorway for a moment. That stare. The full, uninterrupted, communicating everything without words stare. Then he said, "Your mother told me you came home and showed her yourself without waiting for the letter." I nodded. He was quiet for another moment. "That was the right thing to do," he said. "Next term, do better." And then he closed the door and walked back down the hallway. 9 words. He had summed up his entire position on the situation in 9 words. Next term, do better. No extended lecture, no removal of privileges, no dramatic family meeting. Just 9 words and a closed door. I sat back down on my bed and thought about everything that had just happened. I thought about the walk home, the decision to tell the truth, the expression on my mother's face, my father's 9 words. And I thought about Marcus standing on the road eating his patty, telling me to go home and be honest. Because here is what I realized sitting in that room. The worst part of the whole day had not been the grades. It had not been the red ink comment from Mr. Campbell. It had not been the walk home or the moment I placed the report card on the table. The worst part had been the hours before all of that. The standing in the hallway, the walking without a destination, the garbage bin idea and the pen idea and the running to Devon's house idea. The worst part had been the time I spent alone with my own fear, creating stories in my head about how terrible things were going to be, because the reality, when it actually arrived, was hard, but it was survivable. And more than survivable, it was honest. For the first time in a long time, I had not tried to hide something or fix something or escape something. I had just walked straight into it. And yeah, my grades were terrible. And yeah, next term was going to require real work and real focus. But I was still there, still in the house, still at the table, still a part of things. And somehow, that night, eating the last of the rice and peas my mother had left covered on the stove for me, I felt something I had not expected to feel after the worst report card in the history of my academic life. I felt like I could actually fix it.